were the Loyalists? Well, these lovely-looking men that you see in front of you, they were the supporters of Great Britain and Her Majesty during the 1700s. Loyalists were a very important group during the American Revolution because they were the group of people that decided that they were to stay and loyal Great Britain instead of the radical Americans. Many problems that people in this time were faced with hard choices of which side to choose. It was almost like the divided America that we see today, between the left and the right. But that's another matter, because the Loyalists were instantly enemies with the radicals. American patriots used a process called tar and feathering to intimidate the British tax collectors. So the Loyalists viewed patriots as scoundrels, and so did the people. A famous Loyalist by the name of Thomas Hutchinson was a Boston merchant who served as a governor of Massachusetts, and was an avid pro-British man, and his house was burned down in 1765 by protesters that were protesting the crown. In 1774, he packed up and left America to go to London, where he would die 6 years later. And during his time in London, he always felt that he was exiled from his home in America because of the Patriots, and in his last letters of his life, he said he had rather die in a little country farmed house in New England than in the best nobleman's seat in Old England. Probably one of the biggest groups of Loyalists were the African Americans, for they were granted freedom of slavery if they were to run away from their Patriot masters. Somewhat around 50,000 slaves abandoned their masters and made it their way to the Loyalist side. And when the war ended, the British were able to settle 20,000 African Americans as free people, considering during this time that is still a lot of slaves to be set free. During the war, it was very hard to be a Loyalist due to the crushing power of the Patriots and a very constant danger and fear from many radical patriots. So many Loyalists either A, left, or B, joined the British Army. Also, most Loyalists lived in New York.
Before the American Revolution had begun, there existed people who supported the colonies and believed they should be independent from Great Britain. Though these people had varying beliefs and points of view, they were considered patriots because they wanted their independence from England's oppressive rule. Thomas Paine, who was the supporter of the Patriots, wrote the Common Sense pamphlet and some other revolutionary documents, such as the American Crisis Papers. His work regarding the American Revolution was powerful and a decent representation of what a patriot strove to be and what they fought for in their country. In his American Crisis Papers, Thomas Paine said that not a place upon earth might be so happy as America, but he was very clear in his opinion that America would only be happy once they had broken away from British rule. Other patriots fought in the Revolutionary War, and one of these brave men was Joseph Plum Martin, who served in the Continental Army. When compared to the British militia, the Continental Army was rather a ragtag group of small militias and patriots. The patriots' uniform was not always red and blue, and sometimes included lottery coats, which were often of a different color. They had little money and were often short of resources, which is reflected in Martin's narrative. In one entry, Martin said, "The men were very much fatigued and faint, having had nothing to eat for 48 hours. Though hunger was an enemy he faced many times during his service, Martin also contracted smallpox with several other soldiers and was regularly exposed to harsh environmental conditions. He was one of the soldiers that was at Valley Forge, where conditions were less than pleasant. Later in his life, he wrote his narrative so generations after his own could hear of his story as a patriot during the American Revolution." While some patriots fought in the Revolution with gunpowder and weapons, others fought for independence in a different way. Richard Henry Lee was a Virginian that wanted America to be separated from Great Britain. He introduced a resolution to the Second Continental Congress, and soon after, Thomas Jefferson, along with 4 others, drafted the Declaration of Independence. His resolution became known as the Lee Resolution once accepted by Congress. Some men, such as Philip Vickers-Fithian, who was a tutor at Nominee Hall, observed the effects of patriotism. In one letter written on the 24th day of January, 1774, Fithian wrote that gentlemen here, in general, applaud and honor our northern colonies for manly and patriotic resistance. And in another letter, he expressed that the people he was in company of drank coffee at 4 because they are now too patriotic to use tea. Another loyal patriot was Anne Terrell, who wrote a letter and had it published by the Virginia Gazette. In her letter, Terrell encouraged men to go and fight for the patriotic cause and for women to support them in their choice. So what is a patriot? Men, women, enslaved Africans, farmers, and anyone who supported America's independence from Great Britain.